Good morning, committee, and welcome to any member of the public joining the 2nd of February 2021 meeting of the Western and Southern Area Planning Committee, which is one of the 3 area-based plan committees of the Dorset Council. Our area of remit covers the previous Weymouth and Portland Borough Council and most of the previous West Dorset and District Council areas. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Council has had to put in place measures to enable the Council's decision-making process to continue whilst keeping safe members of the public, councillors and Council staff in accordance with the government's guidance on social distancing by applying new regulations for holding committee meetings from remote locations. Therefore, this meeting is being live streamed to the public, and a copy of the recording will be available on the Council website following the meeting. Members of the public are invited to make written representations, provided they are submitted to Democratic Services by 8:30 AM no later than 2 working days before the meeting. These representations will take the form of written statements of no more than 450 words, with no attachments, and will be read out at the committee during the committee by our administration assistant. For the benefit of the public, my name is Councillor David Shortell, Chairman of this Area Planning Committee, and my Vice Chairman is Councillor Bill Pipe. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everybody.
Good. Introducing other members of the committee, Councillor Mike Barron. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning.
Councillor Dave Bolwell. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chair. I'm present.
Good. Councillor Kelvin Clayton. Good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Chair.
Councillor Susan Cocking. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Chair, and to the officers and the members of the public.
Councillor Jean Dunseth. Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good. Councillor Nick Ireland. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, Chairman.
Councillor Louis O'Leary. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good. Councillor Kate Weller. Good morning, Kate.
Morning, sorry.
That's all right, Kate, don't worry. You're with us, that's the main thing. Councillor Sarah Williams. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair.
And Councillor John Worth. Good morning, John.
Chairman.
Good morning, to you all. For your information, a number of officers will also be involved during the meeting, and these will be introduced at the appropriate time. We will now follow the agendas as set out in your packs. Apologies. Do we have any apologies for this meeting, please?
No apologies received, Chairman.
Thank you, Anne. Very kind. I'll now take item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does any member have any declarations of pecuniary or other conflict of interest, bias or predetermination regarding any item on the agenda?
Chair, it's Councillor Susan Cocking. I have a non-pecuniary interest on agenda item 5A, application WP/19/0919 outline. It's to do with Albion Stone. It's a non-pecuniary interest, but I have a link to Albion Stone. I have taken legal advice from Phil Crowther, our legal department, and will not be debating or taking part or voting in this item, but I have requested to speak as a ward member for Portland.
Thank you, Susan. That's very kind. I've noted that. Does anyone have any further declaration of interest?
Chairman, is Councillor Louis O'Leary, although it's not really a conflict of interest, but relating to the planning application for the homeless shelters at the Park and Ride in Weymouth. I did meet with the bus shelter people in the summer of 2019 to discuss issues around this, although it doesn't affect the way I will be voting, and I will keep an open mind.
Well, I've noticed your interest, Louis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any expression of interest?
Councillor Nick Ireland, Chairman, has requested to speak.
Okay, Nick.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity, my wife is a trustee of the Lantern Trust, so on item 5B, I will be taking part. I don't have a pecuniary interest or any interest at all. Just a note.
Yeah, I've duly noted, Nick. Thank you. Is there any further declaration of interest? Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed, committee. We'll now take item 3 on the agenda to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of January 2021. Has all members received a copy of those minutes?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If members are content, I will sign those minutes as a record of what took place as soon as I can get access to the office. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, public participation. The committee has received a number of written representations submitted in accordance with the amended speaking protocol effective from the 20th of July 2020. That is the first 3 public statements received an objection and the first 3 in support, including the applicant or agent, will be read out by an officer not involved in the application. The number does not include representations received from town and parish councils or by relevant Dorset councillors. The written statements have been circulated to all members of the committee prior to this meeting. Members, we've had an update regarding item 5A on the agenda received last night by me. I'm checking to make sure that everyone has received a copy of that particular update and they've read it accordingly. Okay, we have 2 planning applications before us today for consideration. A comfort break of 5 or 10 minutes will be taken as and when is required. Right, committee, I will now take item 5 on the agenda, and that's the planning application 5A WP 190919 outline, Royal Manor Arts College, Western Road, Portland, DT5 2DB. And that is for the demolition of existing buildings and hard standing and the development of up to 98 new homes with all matters reserved, with the exception of site access. I now invite Penny Canning, the case officer, to introduce this item. Over to you, Penny.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's probably prudent for me to just summarise those updates. We've had a number of updates, all quite close to the committee meeting, so I appreciate some members may not have been able to read them, and I think for members of the public listening in today, it will be worth me just going through some of those updates for you. So apologies for those who have already read it. So initially, just to start on the conditions, just to make members aware that the conditions have been revised to allow demolition works and the construction of a bat house prior to details relating to the construction of the housing being submitted. The conditions have also been reworded to differentiate between the different phases of development, enabling individual phases to proceed ahead of receiving full details relating to the other phases. Other modifications have been made to the application, to the conditions, and an additional 2 conditions have been recommended to include the requirement of a lighting strategy and details requiring of material samples for the bat house to be first submitted. The full wording of the conditions are provided on your update sheet. The changes made to the conditions seek to better reflect the phasing of the development and seek to ensure the impact of the development are appropriately mitigated, but otherwise are not considered to materially change the recommendations as set out in the report. A number of representations have been received. One additional third-party objection has been received. The additional representation raises no new material planning objections to those already covered in the report. A further representation has been received from Albion Stone, raising concern regarding the content of the committee report. So for the purposes of clarity, I would like to make the following comments. In particular, Albion Stone confirmed that their comment suggesting housing should be delayed on site by 10 to 15 years, as reported under paragraph 16.52 of the report, relates to concerns surrounding the impact of the proposed housing in this location and what that impact could have on the adjacent mining activities within the mineral safeguarding area. So as a consequence, that's of the consequence of future restrictions to mining to protect the amenity of residents. So the concern is that the 10 to 15 years suggested delay is not specifically in relation to the mining under the site. It's in relation to the impact that bringing housing into that area could have on wider mining issues within the area. This issue is referred to as the agent of change principle, and it is a material planning matter. The matter is considered under in the report, and it's considered under paragraph 16.63 and 16.64 of the report, and the conclusions remain relevant. Albion Stone wished to make clear that notwithstanding the suggested delay to safeguard all mining operations in the vicinity, actual extraction of the mineral and backfilling under the application site itself could occur within 3 to 4 years. The suggested 3 to 4 year period to extract and backfill the mine is considered achievable, and it reflects the estimate set out by the Minerals Authority and reported under paragraph 16.42 of the report. The conclusions of para 16.52, that under the circumstances a delay to the delivery of housing on the site would be unreasonable, remains relevant, but a delay of 3 to 4 years would have a much reduced impact, of course, than a delay of 10 to 15 years, and this has to be considered in the planning balance. Albion Stone have also raised concern regarding liability for any housing located on phase 3 where backfilling has occurred. A structural stability report has been submitted with the application, considering the stability of the site, and sets out recommendations to ensure the site can be safely developed. The developer would have to comply with the conditions set out, requiring geotechnical ground investigation, stability assessment and method statements to be carried out and agreed prior to any house building taking place. It would be the responsibility of the developer to satisfy the recommendations of the geotechnical report, and if it could not be demonstrated that the land was not suitably stable, then the condition would not be discharged, preventing any house building from commencing. As set out in the report, the safeguarding of Portland stone is a material planning consideration, and the MPPF affords great weight to the extraction of minerals of local and national importance. Without prior extraction, the provision of housing in the unmined area to the south would sterilise a finite resource, and this has to be considered in the planning balance. Likewise, with a minimum 3 to 4 year delay to the delivery of much needed housing, this would too have to be weighed in the planning balance, and any such delay would be out of the control of the developer. Given there is provision for Portland stone within the mineral safeguarding area, and given the site's position outside of the safeguarded area, the Minerals Authority have raised no objection, and there would be no conflict with the development plan policies. The site would bring forward both affordable and open market housing within a sustainable location on previously developed land, and this weighs in favour of the development. The additional representation raises no other new material planning objections from those already covered in the report. Representation has also been received from English Stone Forum, supporting the objection by Albion Stone. Again, the additional representation raises no new material planning objections from those already covered in the report and those reiterated above. Further representation has also been received from Historic England. Whilst Historic England have not objected to the application, they have raised concern about the potential impact of the proposed development on the future supply of Portland stone, and request that due weight be given to the importance of avoiding sterilisation of this important resource. A further objection, which isn't noted on your update sheet, because again it's come in since sending that back around this morning, is a further comment from a further objection received from Eden Portland, which was formerly known as the Memo. Having reviewed the further representations made and having weighed up the material planning considerations, the overall conclusions of the report remain relevant and the recommendation is set out in the report remains unchanged. The issues are nevertheless finely balanced and should be given due consideration. Please note a typing error also in paragraph 1652, which should reference paragraphs 203 and 205 of the MPPF. Moving to the presentation, thank you for that, Chair. The application relates to the demolition of existing buildings and the erection of up to 98 dwellings at land at the Royal Manor School, the former school on Portland. The application site lies on the northwestern edge of Easton and relates to the former Royal Manor School site. The site currently lays redundant following its closure in 2016, when the school provision was made to the Atlantic. It was moved to the Atlantic Academy School site. The site falls within the settlement boundary. If I just provide you with my laser pen, you can see the site outlined in red. You've got development along its eastern and southern boundary. To the northwest of the site is the Grade 1 listed St George's Church and its graveyard that runs along the western boundary on the other side of Western Road. The site sits in a very sensitive location, and this plan is there to just illustrate some of the sensitivity surrounding the site. So the application site is located where my cursor is now. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. It's just shaded in orange there. The stars identify listed buildings. We've got Grade 2 listed buildings on the northeast corner of the site, and on the northwest corner of the site we've got St George's Church, which is Grade 1 listed. These pink lines just seek to illustrate the rights of way within the area. You can see that there's rights of way leading out to the open land to the west, and also here. It's tricky to see on this plan, but the blue hashed area there is the Isle of Portland area of special scientific interest, and along the edge here, you'll see on the next plan a little bit more detail. The site also lies in proximity to the Isle of Portland to Studland Cliff Special Area of Conservation. So looking further afield, you can see these areas in a little bit more detail. The aqua sort of greeny colour here shows the site of special scientific interest. You can see the special area of conservation running along the coastal area here, the site outlined in red here. The site also sits in close proximity to Chesil Beach and the Fleet, which is designated as a special area of conservation, special protection area and Ramsar site. In particular, I want to draw your attention to two local nature reserves run by the Dorset Wildlife Trust, Tout Quarry, located where my cursor is now, and Kings Barrow Quarry, both located on designated land and within walking distance of the application site. In terms of the planning history of the site, noteworthy are the minerals permissions currently extant under the northern portion of the site, identified on the submitted phasing plan on phase 3. So this area here, this northern portion is phase 3, and that is subject to the minerals applications. Phase 2 is not currently subject to any mineral planning application. So to go through these in order, planning permission was granted under application 13754, which granted temporary permission to extend Jordan's mine located to the north here. The extension went under the road and into the application site. This is the area underneath the tennis courts, mainly on the old school site, and the permission allowed the extraction of minerals underneath the site. A further consent under application 17298 grants consent for an extension to Bowers Mine to the west. This land is outside of the application site, but it's useful to understand the context of where mining is occurring within the area and shows various linkages with Jordan's mine, including but not solely relying upon links to the mines under the school site. A further extension to Jordan's mine was permitted under application 17880 to allow mining under the Youth and Community Centre, which is highlighted here in orange. A condition on the consents that relate to mining under the application site requires mineral extraction to cease and the mines to be backfilled by the 30th of September 2021. So these plans are the submitted layout plans that have been provided with the application. These are indicative only, so they are simply there to represent how a development could be accommodated on this site. The application is all in outline with the exception of the access. So the access is shown utilising the existing school access to the site of Western Road. That is a detailed consideration at this time, with all matters including layout, appearance, scale, all reserved for a reserved matters stage. You'll notice this plan actually differs from a parameter plan that has been submitted. In response to concerns raised, the parameter plan, which is this one here, seeks to establish a number of overarching principles, creating frontages in key areas and restricting development in this northern portion of the site here. Also shown on this slide is the proposed details relating to the site access along the western boundary onto Western Road. These are some photos of the site just to give you an impression of the site and its surroundings. I'll start with the picture on the right because it's useful to show the relationship of the site. This large building here is the southern extent of the site, so that's school buildings or former school buildings currently present on the site, proposed for demolition, and you can see its relationship with the back gardens of residential properties located here. There's a footpath that runs dividing the site between the residential properties and the access. That's the same building here on this picture to the left, and you can see the school site extending to the north, and difficult to see in this picture, but you can also approximately where my cursor is the Grade 1 listed church. These photos are now just showing you that southern boundary of the site. So you've got the rear garden fences to the south of the site, and these are the school buildings on the site. Again, these photos are provided to give you an impression of the development within the site and its relationship with the surrounding area. So these photos on the top of the page show the existing buildings on site. You can see at the bottom of the page the relationship of the site located on the left here, and on the bottom right hand picture on the left again, adjacent to the properties on St George's Road. Again, these are some shots from St George's Road showing the relationship of the buildings and the school site with the existing dwelling houses and some of the buildings and tennis courts currently on the site. These photos are in respect of the north. So the top left-hand photo is taken looking north. You can possibly not just see the church located in the distance where my cursor is. The photo to the top right is stood at the north of the site looking south. So that boundary wall delineates the northern boundary of the application site, and the picture to the bottom left-hand corner just shows that northern boundary and the relationship there with the Grade 1 listed church. And these photos are then running down along the western boundary of the site, showing again the relationship of the site, the buildings located on the site, and the setting in adjacent to residential properties. So a number of key planning matters have been raised in relation to the application. Principle of development, impact on mineral resources, impact on heritage assets, impact on nature conservation, highways impact, and the impact on the visual and residential amenity of the area. I'll go through these in order. In terms of the principle of development, the site falls within the settlement boundary. Portland Town Council objected to the application on grounds that the policy on grounds that the proposal conflicted with policy CR1 of the draft neighbourhood plan. Since commenting, that policy, which seeks to protect recreation facilities, has been modified and doesn't actually include this site any longer, and doesn't identify the site as valued facilities. Given the facilities, in terms of the recreation facilities we're talking about, given these facilities have been replaced at the Academy School site as opposed to lost, there's no objection from Sport England and there is no policy conflict in this regard. Portland Town Council have raised concerns regarding the number of units proposed on the site, the impact on wider infrastructure and impact on heritage assets, and we'll consider those as we go through the report. But in terms of the principle of development, the application site falls within the settlement boundary of Easton, where development is supported. Moving to the impact on minerals, we've received representation raising concern that the development of the site for housing would prevent further extraction of a valuable Portland stone under the site. This is a material planning consideration, and the NPPF affords great weight to the benefits of mineral extraction. In doing so, authorities should identify mineral safeguarding areas to safeguard mineral resourcing and encourage mineral extraction. In this regard, the site falls outside of the mineral safeguarding area. So the mining consents were permitted as a temporary opportunity, but were restricted to a temporary permission and in recognition that the site would make a valuable contribution to meeting housing needs. To delay the development of the site until extraction could result in delays of 3 years or more, and such delays to development would be unreasonable, particularly where there is no policy support within the development plan for safeguarding the stone under the site. Moving to the impact on heritage assets. I provided a further slide here just to identify the key and closest assets. The site falls within the setting of a number of listed buildings identified in yellow. You can see the grade 1 listed St George property here located to the northwest, and you've got grade 2 listed buildings located to the northeast. The conservation area, the boundary of which approximately is highlighted in blue. The Design and Conservation Officer has identified the greatest impact would result from proposed development in this northern, more open aspect of the site. In response to concerns, the applicant has provided the parameter plan, which now excludes development within this area. The Conservation Officer considers that the impact of the development would result in less than substantial harm, and having regard to the wider benefits of the scheme, raises no objection. Where development would result in less than substantial harm, that harm has to be weighed against the public benefits. In this case, these include the site's contribution to the delivery of affordable and open market housing within a sustainable location on previously used land. And it's considered in this case that these benefits would outweigh that harm. Moving to the impact on nature conservation. So we've heard that the site not only sits within a sensitive area, the site itself is also used by bats in particular, but the development would also generate additional residents within the area, and they would have a subsequent impact on surrounding designated areas. In particular, that Tout Quarry and Kingsbarrow Quarry Nature Reserve has been raised as a key concern. We'll consider the two issues in turn. First, in terms of the site itself and species using the site, the applicant has submitted a certified biodiversity mitigation and enhancement plan, which includes a number of mitigation measures to safeguard protected species. These include a bat house, which would be proposed here, which you'll notice in the condition that is to be provided prior to demolition, hence the variation in the conditions to allow for that to occur. In terms of the impact on the wider designated area, the applicants have agreed to make a financial contribution towards mitigating the impact on Tout Quarry and Kingsbarrow Quarry. This has been agreed by Natural England, who raises no objection on this basis. The impact on Chesil Beach and the Fleet would be mitigated through the sill payment made in respect to the site. Concern has also been raised by residents in relation to the impact of the development on local road networks and the highway impact associated with that. The Highway Authority has been consulted in relation to the application and considered these issues and raised no principal objection in this case. In terms of the concerns also raised in relation to the visual impact and impact on neighbours, the application site is of course in outline form at this stage, leaving detailed matters for further consideration. However, it is considered that through careful design, the site could be developed without significant harm arising. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to a Section 106 and conditions. Just to briefly go through the key terms of the Section 106. These relate to the delivery of affordable housing, 25% of the dwellings to be affordable, the management and maintenance of public open space, payment of a financial contribution towards mitigating the impact of Tout Quarry and Kingsbarrow Quarry, and payment of a financial contribution towards local health services. The conditions are listed briefly here for your consideration, but I would also refer you to the update sheet where the conditions are listed in full. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Penny. Very comprehensive. I now invite Councillor Paul Kimber, the ward member, to address the committee.
Thank you very much, Chair and officers, for that full report. I'm going to request to you today to consider a further consideration of a defer for one cycle, and the reason I'm asking for this, the Portland Town Council that when they was considering it, whilst it looked as though he was completely objected to it, we were obviously welcoming the area of social housing, which is very, very badly needed. So when we looked at this, the Portland Council was under the impression that we would almost 100% would be on the social housing, and that would take up the needs of the area and the needs locally for more affordable housing and areas that we could, and social housing, and to bring about that need. So that's one important area, and it would, by delaying it for one cycle, it would give the Portland Town Council the opportunity to fully consider the application in. Now, the other area I want just quickly to talk about is mineral extraction and the potential delay and the site. Clearly, with that level of stone and the amount of stone, it's going to be an issue, and something that I believe we should again really further consider and understand. I understand that the school site was not included in the mineral safeguarding area, the MSA, but there was I understand an error for the mine planning team, as national guidance advice in urban areas should be covered. So I'm asking for you to also to consider that area as well. Is that that amount of stone that I don't believe can be extracted in this short time and get it satisfactory. So I'm requesting a deferment of one cycle, so that can allow the Portland Town Council and other parties to come back with further recommendations to the committee. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Before I put those concerns to Penny, I'm also going to call on Councillor Susan Cocking, who would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. It may not be a few words, but I'll try and keep it quick. When I first looked at this application, it seemed very muddled. I queried, am I looking at a housing development application or a minerals application? With regard to the housing application, it's great that affordable housing is going to be provided in various disguises on this site. However, is this application, like many we have decided on previously, going to come back to this committee by the applicant or the developer, and they claim that it's not viable to have affordable housing on this site, especially given the hidden costs of radon gas, contaminated land and mineral issues associated with this development? Then they will request a reduction in the affordable housing quota. Then we have no option but to approve their request yet again. On page 39.16.36, the overdevelopment of this site is noted by the urban officer, and he recommends 86 dwellings on this site. The enabling housing team on point 9 would have preferred a reduction of 2 flats and a higher number of 2-bed houses, which would be more appropriate for family homes. It's a case of packing as many units, houses on this site with no thought of the type of accommodation needed for residents. If 98 homes were to be approved, this is on page 26, if 98 homes were to be approved, that would put a huge burden on our already overstretched doctor surgeries on Portland, when they already have problems in recruiting GPs to work in the area. Again, confusion around the seal money. I now understand that it's £7,800.40. Seems very little compensation to serve so many extra residents, and this would be split not just between the surgery on Portland, but could be a split to surgeries in Weymouth. On the minerals part of the application, all the mining is ceased in September 21, and no further permission to extract stone under the site. 16.52 states that it would take 10 to 15 years to extract the remaining stone. Where is the evidence to support this timescale? Where has it been stated that, where it has been stated by Albion Stone that it would take 3 years? I know the case officer has amended some of that, but there's still confusion around that in the report. The extraction of Portland stone brings great employment and economic benefits to Portland, not just to the stone companies, but to the wider local economy. And in the current uncertain economic times, we should be encouraging local businesses to expand and flourish, not to hinder and to put obstacles in their way. And can I draw the committee's attention to 16.39 and 16.40 and the conclusion on page 24 about the minerals. While I support affordable, sustainable housing, this development will have significant impact and unacceptable level of harm on triple SSI sites, which include the nearby local Tout Quarry, which is a triple SSI, and Kimbarrow's Quarry, which is triple SSI. That's on point 8 on page 19, and these are concerns for the Conservation Officer, again on page 35 and page 36. Not to forget the impact it will have on the landscape and street scheme, as across the road is one of the most unique churches in the country and a Grade 1 listed church, St George's, and surrounding Grade 2 listed buildings and architecture. I will finish on my report, my conclusion, in point 16.3. This sums it up for me for this application. It quotes at 16.43, the application therefore raises a number of issues which require resolution. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Susan. That's a very comprehensive question. I'm now going to go back to Penny Canning to respond with any salient points she may wish to clarify on either of those presentations. And that's the delay in phase construction to allow Portland to Council to deliberate the full report, and that of affordable housing, the pressure on the doctor's surgery, and the SSSI comments. So I'm going to hand back to Penny, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll actually do that in a separate order, but whilst I've got the last comments in my mind for the moment, okay. If you don't mind. So to be clear, what we're considering before us is a housing application. It's an application for the demolition of the buildings on the site and the provision of 98 dwellings on the site. It's not a minerals application. The details and the information provided in respect of the minerals work, they are a material planning consideration, so it's important to explain those in the context, but it is not a minerals application, it's a housing application, just to be clear there. In terms of any future resubmissions of the application with reductions in affordable housing provision, we of course have to consider what's before us. The affordable housing weighs in favour of the application. If this application were to come back to us due to viability issues, suggesting that the affordable housing couldn't be provided, then that may weigh differently in the balance when at the time when that's submitted. So on those comments, it's just really important to stress that we have to consider what's before us. In terms of the overdevelopment on the site, that was a concern raised by Portland Town Council as well. It is, you know, we've had a look at it. We've had long discussions with our urban design officers. It was the provision of that parameter plan that assisted to address some of the urban design officer concerns in relation to the original layout plan provided, and it was considered that there was sufficient space on that site to provide those housing, but of course that's a consideration for yourselves. In terms of the type of housing and the comments made by the affordable housing officer, those details are reserved for future consideration and certainly would need to be looked at the reserved matter stage. In terms of the impact on local infrastructure, and in particular, comments were made in relation to the doctor's surgery. A contribution is being made towards that doctor's surgery. That contribution has been calculated and recommended by CCG, and that's in accordance with their comments, who raised no objections subject to that contribution. In terms of the extraction of stone, I shan't repeat what's been said in terms of the time frames and so forth. That's within your update sheet, and I don't think there's probably any further merit in me other than repeating those comments. The site is in a sensitive location in terms of impacts on biodiversity, impacts on heritage. A contribution is being made towards Tout Quarry and Kingsbarrow Quarry. No objection is raised by Natural England or the Natural Environment Team in respect to the conditions and planning obligations in that regard. Again, the heritage impact, less than substantial harm has been identified. That harm has to be considered and weighed in the balance against the public benefits. In this case, the conservation officer is raising no objection, notwithstanding that harm, hence the conclusions within the report. In terms of the consideration to defer the application to provide Portland Town Council time to reconsider, that's certainly an option for you if you feel that there's merit in doing that. The application has come before us today as a consequence of that Portland Town Council objection. if Portland Town, I think it would be appropriate for it to come back to committee. But in theory, if Portland Town Council weren't objecting to the application, it wouldn't have triggered that committee process. That's really something for you as councillors to decide whether you feel that there's merit in doing that. And I think I've covered all those points, but please correct me and ask me again if I've missed something there.
Okay, Penny, thank you very much. It's a very comprehensive answer. Are there any points to be raised by Highways Engineer or any other relevant council officer?
Councillor Shortell, Colin Graham here, Dorset Council. Nothing really to add, to be honest. I studied the TA, which is the transport assessment, which is reasonable. It's predicting low levels. I've noted the comments about getting on off the island. I lived there myself for a long time ago, for 4 years, so I can appreciate some of it. And it's noted that it's predominantly when there's either roadworks or an accident that's happened, which is unusual, infrequent, and wouldn't be a consideration. Normally, it's outside the normal traffic scope. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Chairman, before you continue, there's somebody from the minerals team who would wish to contribute at this stage. Would that be okay?
I'll just check with Anne. Is it okay for minerals to interject at this particular juncture?
Yes, we've asked Trevor Badley from our minerals team to come along today in case members have any comments, but he might wish to say something up front now before we get to questions.
Point taken. Trevor, would you like to say a few words now?
Thank you, Chairman. Trevor Badley, as I've already been introduced, and I am part of the Minerals and Waste team of Dorset Council. I have no comment to make apart from, if you like, a correction to Councillor Kimber. When we prepared our minerals strategy, which was adopted back in 2014, that established the mineral safeguarding for Dorset, and it was a conscious decision. It wasn't an error to exclude the land under the if you like built development on Portland, because certainly at that time there had been no mining under housing, and we had no basis to accept it at that time, I stress. So we took a conscious choice to not safeguard the stone under the existing built up areas. We were satisfied that there was adequate reserves of stone on Portland without safeguarding land under the housing, and as I say, it was a conscious choice. It wasn't an oversight on our part. I think that's all I have to say right now, Chair, and I'm happy to answer any further questions if necessary.
Thank you, Chair. That's very kind. Right. Now, are there any questions by the committee of a technical nature for the case officer or for highways?
We have three plus myself, Chairman.
Who are we going with first then, Bill?
Well, I hit the button first, so I'll have a go if I can get rid of the cat.
Bill.
Cat's disappeared. Good.
Yeah, we've noticed.
Yeah, sorry about that. We are here today just to discuss the access to this site, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So all other matters are reserved matters. I know Carol was very into what she was saying, but I think what Carol was saying then has to come later if there's ever a planning application, because we are only discussing the access here today. That's all I had to say, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Councillor John Worth, if it's a technical question.
Yeah, John, is that?
Yeah, it's not a technical question. It was more a comment. So maybe it's save it for a bit further on.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Kate Weller, Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Thank you. I think this might have been addressed already, but just to confirm, when the actual plans are drawn up for the how the houses are set out and so on, I'm concerned that the police say that there's been no reference to the Design Guidance Homes 2019 that the police recommend us following, but we'll have an opportunity. This plan will come back at some time because it is only outlined now. I just want a confirmation of that so I don't bore you all with everything now.
Yeah, okay, Kate, that is correct. This is only an outline application, and the reserved matters will be dealt with at a future date. Okay, Bert, who was the next one?
Councillor Jean Dunseith, Chairman.
Jean, would you like to come in now?
Thank you, Chairman. There we go. I was wondering why the affordable housing was 25% on this development, because normal rule of thumb is 35%. I just wondered if there was any particular reason for this.
It's outlined in the West Dorset, Weymouth and Portland neighbourhood plan, Jean, that the housing, the provision of affordable housing is 25% for Portland and 35% for the rest of the area. I
thought that there was a different number for Portland and that it was lower, so thank you for that. The second one, I know we're only here to really look at the road and the entrance, and I don't know if it's that applicable, but it's this backfilling of mines, which when the stone has been extracted and the mine is backfilled, it still leaves a space, apparently, of 0.3 to 0.5 of a metre. And I just wondered what the reason was for that, because that's still a space from the top of the backfilling to the roof of the mine. But maybe this is not the correct place to ask that. I'm not sure.
That is a technical question, Jean, and I will ask a technical person if they're willing to answer that.
Thank you.
Possibly Trevor, Chairman.
Trevor, over to you, Trevor. Can you answer that?
I'm afraid I don't have a definitive answer, Chairman. I'm not normally working in the development management team in the minerals team. I understand. My understanding is that this approach has been established and checked and reviewed and accepted, and it is the standard approach with the mines on Portland that when they're backfilled, they're not, if you like, rammed absolutely tight full. But I could not, I'm afraid, give you detail as to the reason behind that. If committee wish to know, then I'm sure I can find out and come back. But I couldn't give you a definitive answer right now, I'm afraid.
Okay, Trevor. I actually go to Penny to see if she would be able to answer that question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, like Trevor, I don't know the technicalities. I do understand that is a fairly standard approach, and from discussions with our minerals and waste team, I understand that it's not considered to be a significant concern. The applicant has provided a structural survey. We're content with that structural survey, which sets out certain recommendations and requirements upon the developer to do several, testing and checking of stability within the area. Beyond that, I can't tell you any more of the technicalities. Did you want me to come back on any of those other points raised ahead?
Perhaps, Chairman, if I could interject, there are two more people with technical questions, and if Penny could possibly answer sort of one block once they've finished. Is that okay, Penny?
Yeah.
Fine, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, we've got next then, Bill.
We have Councillor Kelvin Clayton, then Councillor John Worth.
Okay. Okay, Kelvin, if you'd like to go ahead with your technical question.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question may have been partly answered, but I just want some clarity on this. As partly answered by Trevor Badley, that is. Had this application not come forward, and if the existing building remained occupied, would the impact on mineral resources be an issue? Or to put it in a slightly different way, I think Penny referred to a couple of mining applications that affected this site going back to 2013, 2017, which I presume haven't been taken up. Would they be actually used? So sorry, a bit of a muddled question, but that only reflects my thinking at the moment.
Okay, Kelvin, thank you for that question. I'll go back to Penny in a moment. I think we've got, is it John Worth who also wishes to ask another technical question, Bill?
We do, Chairman, and we've added to the list with Councillor Kate Weller again.
Okay, we'll have John Worth first then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Back again, John.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think this is a technical question. If we were to approve what's before us today, would the reserve matters come back before this committee when it goes for full planning permission?
Yes, it would. But I'll get Penny to answer that. Okay, and also finally, before I go back to Penny, I'll go back to Kate, if I may. Do you have another technical question, Kate?
It's not a technical question, Chairman. It was a comment when we finished on the technicalities.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to come back to Penny then. Could you answer those questions, please, Penny?
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the start of the initial concerns or questions. Just want to make it clear that you're absolutely right. You are considering the access, but also the number of dwellings on the application site is a consideration as well. So it's the access and the number. In terms of the police recommendations, again, as you suggested, Claire, Chair, these would be considered at the reserved matters stage. They're in relation to the detailed layout, boundaries, those kind of detailed designs that would be come out at the reserved matters stage for consideration. In terms of the 25% affordable housing, there is a differentiation between Portland and the remainder of the West Dorset former district. This is set out in the local plan. As you kindly pointed out, Chair, it's linked to ensuring that development costs do not impact upon viability, and it's all linked to land values and house prices, and the differences between Portland and the rest of West Dorset in that respect, and a higher proportion of affordable housing in light of land values and house prices on Portland could result in the development costs exceeding the return, and therefore making developments unviable. So it's all linked to the viability of schemes. In terms of we commented in relation to the gap in the backfilling. In terms of, apologies, I'm just checking the questions that came in. Yes, there would be opportunity to reconsider these issues at reserved matters stage. It would be, apologies, I'm just checking all my questions. In terms of comments in relation to the mining consents, they were granted as an opportunity. So the school became vacant in 2016 when the school provision was consolidated at the Atlantic Academy. It isn't standard practice to mine under existing buildings, but provision was made to mine under the tennis court section, and then later underneath the youth and community centre, part of the development, as an opportunity. Whilst it wasn't within the mineral safeguarding area, it was taking an opportunity whilst the site wasn't developed, and permission was granted in that respect. That permission recognised the opportunity that this site would make to future development, and that was the reason behind restricting the consent to a temporary permission requiring the backfilling in September 2021. Would the reserved matters come back to committee? Yes, they would. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Penny. Very kind. Okay, we've got no more technical questions.
No, you're good to go, Chairman.
Before I open the debate, members, may I remind you to direct any questions or remarks through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. Request to speak needs to be made via the virtual chat facility. Can I also remind members that the chat facility is for the smooth running of the meeting and not to be used for discussion on the merits of an application. Please keep microphones on mute when not speaking to preserve audio quality. And I now open the meeting to debate by members. Bill, who have we got to speak?
We have Jean Dunseith, Chairman.
Okay, Jean, would you like to start off the proceedings?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm there. I would like to echo Councillor Cocking's concerns about viability on this site due to the land conditions. We know radon gas has been mentioned, and oil storage, and also in the reports asbestos has been mentioned. It could be, I know there are reports and surveys and everything, but we have had instances where, due to unforeseen things in the ground and difficulties, that the affordable housing degree or content of a scheme, we've been requested to drop that or lower the numbers, and I do really have great concerns over that on this site. It's more complicated because there's also mining going on underneath, and as I have previously mentioned, with the mining you have the backfilling. I come from an area of the country which, whilst not heavily mined, it certainly was a consideration, and there were mines there. And years later, we have had problems and we've had disturbances to housing due to the mining and the spaces being left between the top of the backfilling and the top of the mine. This is why there's something gone on here. This is why I asked my original question. I can see that if there is a space and the land has been made unstable, that this could cause damage to any structures built on top of it. I'm not saying it would, but it is a possibility, and it has happened in the past. As regards this viability, I wouldn't want to see the affordable housing, the percentage or the number of affordable housing dropped due to the land or ground conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, that's very right. Okay, who we got next, Bill?
Councillor Kate Weller, Chairman.
Kate, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I thank Councillor Cocking for her summation earlier on, which covered pretty much everything that I would have brought up. So I'm not really going to bore you all with that. Can you all just take it as read that I agree pretty much wholeheartedly with Councillor Cocking's points? But there are a couple of things I'd like to say, and one of them is that I think I have a different definition of mitigation than perhaps the planning or anybody else does, maybe, because the mitigation of £7,840 towards improving the health offer on Portland is laughable. So it just seems to me, and the same with mitigating any impact on Tout Quarry and Kings Barrow. That just seems to me like throwing a bit of money at it to shut them up. That's not mitigation in my view at all. So I do doubt on that. But I thank Penny for the information on the design guidance homes that the police mentioned. That's very useful. What I'd really like to know now, because we are only looking at an outline, is can we look at these two issues, the access to the site and the increase in the number of houses, as two separate issues? So can we vote on them separately is what I'm asking. The other thing, as a point of clarity, the late Councillor Novak and I fought tooth and nail pretty much that Portland should not be singled out as fewer affordable homes. It was an innocuous thing to do, but it's been perpetrated constantly ever since. So I don't approve of it, but it's the way it is. But could we have a ruling on those two votes, please, Chairman?
Okay, I believe really that is a matter for reserved matters, but I'll just verify that with Anne, if I may, please.
Thank you, Councillor Shortell. You are considering today the principle of residential development on this site. So is residential development on this site acceptable? And as part of that, they've obviously shown their access in a particular location and are proposing 98 dwellings. The matters can't be separated out. You're either considering the site is acceptable, the access is acceptable, the number of houses is okay, or if one of those is not considered to be acceptable, then you'd obviously be looking to recommend refusal. So they are one and all to be considered together, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. You've clarified that quite well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, okay, that answers your question, mate. That's fine. Who we got next, please, Bill?
No, we've got Councillor John Worth, Chairman, but
okay,
I would just say that it is up to 98 properties, not 98 as a definitive number.
Point taken, Bill. Thank you.
Councillor John Worth, Chairman.
Yeah, okay. Over to you, John. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, this is quite a complex site, and it will have sort of some complex things that have got to go on with regard to, as previously mentioned, radon gas, the mines, etc., etc. And I do share the comments that have been made that I hope when we come to the reserve matters and we agree the affordable housing, there won't be viability problems in the future. So I'd just like to add my comment to those that have previously been said. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Bill, do we have anyone else wishing to speak?
Chairman, there is nobody else registered, or nobody indicated that they wish to speak. They don't have to register, obviously.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, if there's no more deliberation and members are content that they have heard the entire presentation and debate, I will now take a vote by roll call. So I'm going to go through each member in turn, and if they were to give their vote, please, and I'll start with Councillor Mike Barron.
Sorry, Councillor Shortell, it's Anne here. You haven't got a proposer and a seconder for a motion.
That's a very good point, actually.
We have a proposer, Chairman, in Councillor Nick Ireland, and in the absence of a seconder, I will do that. Okay, I'll start off with you then, Nick. Do you have a proposition?
Yeah, I recommend we accept their officer's recommendation.
Right, and do we have a seconder?
You do, Chairman, and Councillor Bill Pipe.
Seconder. Okay, we now have a proposal on seconder. I'll now take my roll call, if I may, and start off with Councillor Mike Barn. Over to you, Mike.
Chairman,
I missed that.
for the recommendation.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Dave Bolwell.
For the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Sorry, Chair, I thought it unmuted and I hadn't. Yes, in favour, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jean Dunseth.
I will vote for it, Chairman.
Okay. And for clarity, Councillor Bill Pike.
For, Chairman.
Okay. For clarity, Councillor Nick Ireland.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Louis O'Leary.
Against, Chairman.
Against. Thank you. Councillor Kate Weller.
Against, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Williams.
For the outline application.
For the outline application, thank you. Councillor John Worth.
Against, Chairman.
Against. Okay. I'm for the outline application. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for and 3 against. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. And just to be clear, that will be on the basis of the updated conditions on the update sheet, Chair.
As laid out by the case officer.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Right. Okay. Before we take the next item on the agenda, does anyone require a comfort break?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Okay. I'll now take a 5-minute recess. Do you wish, Bill?
Yes, just a
5-minute recess. I will ask all members of the committee if they would be so kind as to make sure their microphones are switched off during the comfort break, and we will return at 16 minutes past 11. Thank you, members. Comfort break. Right, committee, welcome back. I will do a quick roll call to make sure everyone's returned. And I'm just going to call on Councillor Mike Barron.
Oh, what am I doing?
Councillor Mike, are you?
Just arrived, Chair.
Oh, good. Councillor David Bolwell.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Yeah, I'm here, Chair.
Councillor Susan Cocking.
Yes, I'm here, Chair, and I can take part in this item on the agenda as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I've noted that, Susan. Thank you for that. Councillor Jean Dunseth.
I have returned, Chairman.
Thank you. Nice to see you again. Councillor Nick Ireland.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Louis O'Leary.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Louis. Councillor Kate Weller.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Sarah Williams.
Present, Chair.
And Councillor John Ware.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, members. Right, we'll now continue with...
Chairman, I need to interrupt you because you haven't called my name out. Councillor Bill Pipe.
On my list, Bill.
Present and correct.
I've seen that you were present because I've seen you on screen, but I forgot to call your name out. I do apologise. Right, we'll now take we'll continue with the items as laid out on the agenda, and we're now going to take item 5B, which is the application WP 20-00814 full application, and that's Mount Pleasant Park and Ride Car Park, Mercery Road, Weymouth, DT3 5FA, and that's the temporary use of land for this stationing of mobile accommodation units for rough sleepers and associated facility with subsequent reversions to be used of site for park and ride parking. I think I got that right. Okay, I will now I now invite Hugh Williams, Mr. Hugh Williams, the case officer, to introduce this item. Over to you, Hugh.
Thank you, Chairman. The application is made by the Best Shelter Dorset in respect of land that's in the ownership of Dorset Council and is reported to the committee for determination in accordance with constitution provisions for council-owned land. The applicant's a registered charity that works to relieve the need of people who are rough sleeping in Dorset by providing shelter, warmth, food and support. The applicant has previously provided accommodation and support services using a converted bus and associated facilities that have been located at the Preston Road Beach Car Park in Weymouth, but has needed to modify their operating arrangements during the COVID-19 emergency. The application proposal provides for future operation of the bus shelter through the temporary stationing of mobile accommodation units and associated facilities on land at the Mount Pleasant Park and Ride Car Park, with subsequent reversion for the site to park and ride car parking. The park and ride is located on the northern fringe of Weymouth, with vehicular access being off the A354 via the Viesta roundabout, which leads to Mercery Road and the Harriers roundabout that also serves the Mount Pleasant Business Park. The Mount Pleasant Business Park is located to the west of the park and ride, with the Sainsbury's Superstore further to the west. Weymouth Rugby Club is located to the south of the park and ride, and the Lawton Valley Nature Park lies to the west. The Preston Road Beach Car Park, which was previously used by the applicant, is approximately 1 kilometre away to the southeast. The park and ride has capacity for over 1,000 vehicles and includes a tarmacked area to the north and east of the bus turnaround and pickup facility, and an overflow car park, which is gravelled to the south. The planning application relates to a relatively small section of the overflow car park to the south of the bus turnaround area, the site area being about 1,400 square metres. The Weymouth Trail, which forms part of the Jurassic Cycle Trail, passes between the Park and Ride and the Mount Pleasant Business Park, a short distance to the west of the site. It joins Mercery Road at the Harriers roundabout, which provides access to the business park and to the Park and Ride. The cycle trail is approximately 25 metres from the application site at its nearest point, approximately 90 metres from the business park, approximately 120 metres from the Lawton Valley Nature Park, and approximately 140 metres from the rugby club playing field. The nearest dwellings are more than 300 metres to the south and to the west. The policies map of the adopted local plan shows the application site to be located outside but close to the defined development boundary for Weymouth. It shows the site as previously developed and not subject to any site-specific development plan policy or allocation, and not subject to any statutory landscape, heritage or nature conservation designation. The Lawton Valley Nature Park is shown hatched green, with parts being identified as of national importance for nature conservation, those areas being designated as site of special scientific interest, and sections further away from the application site being of local importance for their landscape. The Mount Pleasant Business Park's allocated as a key employment site. The blue hatched areas here show the sites of special scientific interest, these being the Lodmore SSSI closest to the application site, and the Lawton SSSI slightly further afield. The nearest designated heritage assets are well removed from the application site, including the Radipole Conservation Area, the Humpty Dumpty Field, scheduled monument, and various listed buildings. The Environment Agency's flood risk for planning shows the application site to be in flood zone 1, so consequently it to be at very low risk of flooding from rivers or the sea. Areas around the Park and Ride that are shown to be at higher risk of flooding reflect the the design surface water management arrangements operating at the Park and Ride site and lower lying areas within the nature park. The Park and Ride itself is constructed on a former landfill site, the landfill being contained within a methane membrane that's overlain by a minimum of at least a metre of clean uncontaminated cover material. Because of the presence of the membrane, all surface water within the Park and Ride sheds to the edges of the site, where it's managed through a series of swales or storage containers under the gravelled area, and then released in a controlled way to drain to the lower lying areas. There are no changes proposed to the existing surface water management arrangements. In terms of the proposed site arrangement, it's expected that the site will be developed in 2 phases, with the first phase involving the stationing of up to 3 accommodation units, a separate kitchen unit, a communal social space, along with a workshop, a learning centre, the existing bus, which will be repurposed so as not to provide accommodation anymore, but as an office and storage, and as a storage unit. The intention of the site layout is to create an inward-looking compound area with the potential phase 2 development involving the addition of up to 5 further accommodation units, these units each being configured as a self-contained microflat. All of the accommodation units would be constructed in steel and would have the appearance of shipping containers, but would be purpose constructed as living accommodation, insulated to a high standard, with UPVC windows and doors either along a single elevation in the case of the phase 1 units, and potentially 2 elevations for the microflats. The phase 1 accommodation units would be 14.6 metres long and 3 metres wide, and be configured to provide 4 bedrooms, each bedroom having an ensuite shower room with shower, toilet and wash hand basin. The microflats in phase 2 would be slightly shorter, 9.1 metres, but also 3 metres wide. All of the units would be designed to be, although the units are designed to be suitable for stacking on top of each other, no stacking is proposed, so it's a single unit in each location. The units would be connected to main services, and it's intended that the site will operate in very much the same way as the project, the bus shelter project, has previously operated from the Preston Road Beach car park. The site will therefore provide what's known as first stop accommodation for rough sleepers and those at risk of rough sleeping, with guests being referred to the project by Dorset Council, the Lantern Trust and Julian House. Stays in the phase 1 accommodation would not be time limited, but guests would be expected to engage with staff and set realistic individual goals and participate in regular support reviews. Stays within the microflats would be limited to a maximum of 2 years, during which time guests would be supported to find work and accommodation elsewhere, and also be required to contribute to the running costs of the microflat accommodation in preparation for living away from the bus shelter community. The application further explains that all guests would have allocated tasks and responsibilities to undertake, and that the guests' behaviour would continue to be managed through the use of an established warning and eviction protocol. Series of photographs to illustrate the site context, initially progressing westwards along Nursery Road, this being to the east of the Viesta roundabout, looking to the Harriers roundabout, Nursery Road leading off to the business park, the park and ride beyond, the application site being to the south of the bus turnaround area. Moving forward to the west of the Harriers roundabout, you can see the Weymouth Trail cycle route leading past to the west of the application site, the entrance to the park and ride and the turnaround area, and in the middle of the screen the torpedosaur sculpture. The planning application site sits in behind this embankment beyond the sculpture. Again, see the landscape embankment, lighting mast within the park and ride, the application site being set down beyond the embankment. This is the view from that embankment into the application area, the site being essentially the section of the gravelled car park. View north from within the park and ride again, the application area being approximately here, the bus turnaround area being in this location, and access to the overflow car park being on the right hand side of the screen. The reverse view from that access point, the proposed use being contained in that area, the roofs at the Mount Pleasant Business Park seen beyond the landscaped embankment. Slightly more elevated view from adjacent to the bus turnaround area. Again, you can see buildings within the business park. The proposed use area being set down, and finally a view from within the business park car park, looking back towards the application site, roughly in this area. The bus turnaround being sort to the left. The recommendation is that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 11.1 of the report. The recommended conditions address the need for a landfill gas risk assessment report, the implementation of a biodiversity plan, which primarily involves management of some grassland areas within the adjacent areas adjacent to the car park, a limitation on the duration of the temporary use and subsequent site clearance. The landfill gas risk assessment is ongoing, but as yet not complete. Preliminary findings are very much in line with expectation and do not raise any particular concerns over the likely suitability of the site for the proposed use, or either the practicality or deliverability of any likely risk mitigation measures. A limit of the 31st of January 2028 is proposed as the end date for the temporary use of the site. There's no particular magic to that date, save that the government is committed to ending rough sleeping by 2028. That, however, does not mean that there will not be a continuing need for specialist accommodation services beyond that point, but service requirements and priorities will be subject to regular review in the intervening period. For the time being, the continued operation of the bus shelter forms an important part of Dorset Council's homelessness strategy, the evidence being that the project has made an important contribution to reducing rough sleeping in Dorset, and a clear need for the specialist accommodation remaining. Use of the site will be under lease from the council, with the applicant and the council each having the ability to terminate the lease before the expiry of the temporary permission. January 2028 therefore seems like a sensible long stop date for the temporary use. That concludes my presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer?
Yes, Chairman. Firstly, we've got Councillor Nick Ireland, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Hugh. A quick question. You just mentioned at the very end the notice period. Well, you said there was ability to give notice, but it doesn't actually specify in the document what the notice period is. And my other question is, it's just for clarity really, is the bus shelter staffed 24/7 on site, or it does mention it in the document how it works? Thank you.
Okay.
Chairman, I can answer that. It's Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, it's only because the bus shelter is in my ward, where half of it is. Is staffed sort of 48 hours, well, 24 hours a day. I almost said 48 hours a day then, by several members of staff. It's a particular couple that are involved that I have to say are pretty selfless in what they do. Although they live in the north of the county, they sort of spend most of their lives on the bus, I think. And I have to say it's a very worthwhile cause, but it is staffed 24 hours a day. I don't believe they're there at the minute. I believe they're over in Swanage, most of them, due to obviously COVID. But yeah, that's all I have to add to Councillor Ireland's question.
Thank you, Nick. Hugh, do you wish to add anything to that answer from Councillor earlier?
Only to confirm that's consistent with my understanding. In respect of the notice period, the lease for the Preston Road Beach Car Park is subject to a 3-month notice period from either lessee or leaseholder, and it's anticipated that the lease arrangements at the Park and Ride will be either identical or very similar to those that the of the current lease at the Preston Road car park. So 3 months is the likely notice period. In practical reality, were the best shelter to need to terminate the lease at shorter notice, that wouldn't be a problem. Were the council to wish to terminate the use, clearly if the use is ongoing and needs to be removed and the accommodation provided elsewhere, a period of time would be necessary. I think 3 months would be 3 months is the likely reasonable minimum period for notice.
Thank you very much, Ian. Right, that answers your question, Nick. I do wish to come back.
Yeah, actually, just raise a separate question. So, 3 months' notice. So, if the bus shelter leave, who's responsible for removing the containers?
Thank you, Nick. I'll have to go back to Hugh on that one.
It'll be a matter covered within the lease. Primarily, the responsibility would usually fall to the occupier. So the expectation will be that the charity arranges removal. The containers are likely to be the property of the charity, although as I understand it, arrangements are still being finalised on the ownership arrangement of the containers. But from the charity point of view, that if they are a charity asset, it will be important that the charity maintains and preserves its asset. So would have good reason for removing them in accordance with notice requirements.
Thank you, Hugh. Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions of a technical nature, Bill?
Yes, we do indeed. Councillor Jean Dunseith, Chairman.
Councillor Dean, up to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't see. Where am I? That's it. Thank you. Now I note we are being asked to approve this until 2028, which is 7 years, which has already been mentioned. And Weymouth Town Council did have queries as to how long this would be approved or how long this would go on for, and they mentioned 5 years. So this could stay in existence for 7 years. The micro flats, which people can stay in or guests can stay in for up to 2 years, when and if they would be there. But I'm just wondering, when is it expected that phase 2, which are the 5 micro flats, would commence? And I believe I've read that it's subject to funding, but do we have any other information on the micro flats, please? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. I'll go back to Mr. Hugh Williams to answer that query.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is that funding is in place to deliver phase 1 of the development, and the expectation is that will proceed this year. at present, as far as to the best of my knowledge, funding isn't currently available for the phase 2 section, but that the applicant is investigating sources of funding to provide the facilities. The acquisition of these units is a significant cost for the charity to face, and there's a degree to which the commitment of the charity's resources needs to be made with some confidence that use of the site is both authorised and can be preserved. As I said earlier, there is no real magic to the date that I've recommended, save that I've been conscious that the proposal is intended to be temporary, in that these are not permanent buildings, but is not an emergency short-term measure. There is an expectation that specialist accommodation for ref sleepers will be needed for the medium to long term. A very short permission, 1, 2, or even 3 years, would leave the charity in a difficult position in terms of certainty that the money that they would be investing would be best invested for facilities appropriate for this location. If they, I don't think a permission restricted to 5 years would hamper would prevent the development going ahead. But as I say, I ultimately opted for 2028 in terms of its relationship to national strategy for addressing ref sleeping. If committee feel a shorter term is more appropriate, it's sort of a matter for committee to suggest, really.
Thank you.
Could I just say there, Chairman, at that point, you know, it's not a short-term endeavour, this one. You know, duration will be ongoing so long as Dorset Council are the landowners, and as long as there's a requirement for such units that exist within Weymouth. I don't think you really can put an end date on it, but the 2028 date is not unreasonable as a start point, I think.
Okay, Bill, that was a question, was it?
It was more a statement, really. But I do have Councillor O'Leary, but I don't know whether that refers to his earlier answer to a question. So perhaps you might like to call Councillor O'Leary, Chairman.
Yes, I'll call Councillor O'Leary to see if there was a question of a technical nature.
No, it was a non-technical nature. It was just requesting to speak when it comes to the debate.
Okay. Any other questions of a technical nature, Bill?
None, Chairman.
Okay. All right. Right. Okay. I will now open the debate to members. Who have we got first to speak?
Councillor O'Leary, Chairman.
Councillor O'Leary, go ahead, please.
Me again.
You again.
It's you again.
I visited, like I said earlier, I visited this site back in the summer of 2019 with the two former members of this planning committee, Councillor Barrow and Gray, who I know have done an awful lot of work on this. And the problem with the current site is they're very much tucked away. They're not on a bus route, which although they can walk into town, but obviously they're still not on a bus route. And they didn't have any running water at the time, and also their cooker was broken and they were struggling with electricity supply. This site will fix all those problems. Really, it will allow them to. It's a more long-term solution. it's a very worthwhile cause. It's just in my ward. I've been down there once or twice since the last meeting, and I just think this is a really clever plan and idea, and I would like to propose it, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. We've got a proposition. Anyone else wishing to speak before I seek a seconder?
We have a large number, Chairman.
Okay, who we got first?
Councillor Nick Ireland.
Nick Ireland and Councillor Nick, over to you.
Yeah, hi. I'd just like to reiterate Councillor O'Leary's comments. The site down in Preston Beach Road wasn't really suitable. It's a shame our park and ride is really just a park and there's no ride. And it's a failure of DCC and now our council that's the case. But it's a good location for what it is, and I'm happy to second this proposal.
You're a seconder. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, who we got next, Bill?
Okay, we have Councillor Sarah Williams, Chairman.
Councillor Sarah Williams. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what the last two councillors said. I think this is a really good scheme. My only concern is that a 3-month turnaround, if, for instance, a bus company wants to move them on, is fairly short, considering they would have to get planning permission for another site and obviously move the buildings to that site. So I'd like to see a bit more flexibility in the lease on the length of time it will take to move all the buildings. So I'd suggest at least a 6-month turnaround on moving.
That's something I'm sure that will be looked at. Okay.
Councillor Jean Dunseith, Chairman.
Councillor Jean, after you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is a very good scheme and I'm in favour of it. I particularly like, and I do hope they get the funding and the go-ahead for the micro flats. I think they're a very exciting development. They're just that little bit bigger than a bedroom, more independent living. And I do hope that they get the 5 of those. I like the micro flats. I think they're very, very useful, and wouldn't mind having one myself. I'm also pleased that, well, I'm also pleased that this will give the guests, now what did it, a registered address, because you can do a lot of good things and a lot of help for people who are rough sleepers or homeless. But in the end, if they don't have that address, it's very difficult to get any sort of social security or doctor's appointments, etc., because they don't have an address where they can be contacted. So all in all, a very good scheme, and I'm very happy to support this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jane. Right, do we have anyone else, Bill?
We have one final one, Councillor John Worth.
Councillor John.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I agree with all my colleagues. I think the shelter bus was excellent, but I think this is the next step forward, and I think this will work out really, really well for the guests, and it will be a much used and welcome facility. So I, like the others, are really happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, John. Does that conclude the deliberation?
I think it. No, it doesn't. Councillor Dave Bolwell just got me on the bell, and we may have a question from Kate Weller as well, Chairman.
Okay. Okay, over to you then now.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a point of order, really. We've got a proposer and a seconder, and I think Sarah Williams put an amendment forward. So I'm just sort of want some clarity on that, please.
Is that the amendment for the 6 months?
Yes, I'm not sure if it was an actual amendment or whether it was intended to be one and we've overlooked it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dave. I took that to being a statement, but I'll go back to that comment from Councillor
Williams, Chairman.
Jean, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, can we put that to
Councillor Williams,
Hugh?
Chairman.
Could we put that to Hugh, please, and see if we?
Sorry, Sarah.
Could we put that to Hugh, please, and see if that can? That'd be a sensible condition to put in to the conditions on this.
let me take that back to Mr. Hugh Williams. Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, Chairman. The notice period is a matter for the lease rather than the planning permission, and the way in which the current lease at the Preston Road car park is written is that it's a minimum period. It doesn't prevent a longer period of notice being provided. I don't personally think it's appropriate to include it as a planning condition, because it is a matter essentially between the council as landowner rather than planning authority and the tenant. But I can certainly feed back to the project team and the council solicitor who will be working on the lease that the suggestion has been made that the notice period should be extended.
Thank you, Hugh. I'm going to
May
go
I
back
come-
to
may I
Selwyn
come-
and
may I
go
come
back
back on that?
to see if she's happy with that to reply.
Yeah, that's great. My concern was that these are slightly more permanent in nature of buildings than the ones at Preston Road, and therefore that we should, if that can go back to the project team, that'd be brilliant.
Thank you very much indeed.
Longer notice.
Now, we did have someone else, Bill.
No, that's been withdrawn, Chairman. You are your own man now. We can go to the vote.
Okay, we have got a proposer and seconder, and so I will now take a vote of acceptance by roll call. Councillor Mike Barron.
I accept, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Dave Bowell.
For the proposal, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Yeah, I support that, Chair.
So, Councillor Sue Cocking.
For the proposal, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jean Dancer.
For the proposal, Chair.
Councillor Bill Pipe.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. For clarity, Councillor Nick Ireland.
For, Chairman.
For clarity, Councillor Louis O'Leary.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Weller.
For.
Councillor Sarah Williams.
For.
Councillor John Worth.
For, Chairman.
And I, of course, am in favour. That is unanimous.
Well done, everybody.
Thank you very much indeed. That concludes the planning applications. We now take item 6 on the agenda. That's appeals decision. Members, I direct your attention to noticed appeals and appeal decisions, particularly with regard to material considerations and how it will impact on future deliberation. And I now invite Anne Collins, the Area Manager for Planning, to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just really like to draw members' attention to the first of the appeals, which is summarised, which is the Land Off Roman Road and Spa Road, Weymouth application. This was recommended for approval by officers but refused by committee in May 2020. It was refused due to concerns about climate change, unsustainable location, impact on conservation area and a lack of the Section 106. By the time the application went to appeal, there was a Section 106 that secured the second reason for refusal and addressed that. So the inspector was just really considering the impact of the development on the conservation area, the location of the development and the issue of climate change. Members will see that the inspector considered the impact on the conservation area to be very limited. He considered the location, albeit outside of the defined development boundary, to be sustainable, given the proximity of the site to facilities, and that in respect to the climate emergency issue, he considered that it to be a sort of neutral consideration in the decision, and therefore attached great weight to the delivery of the housing when we don't have a 5-year housing land supply versus the impact on the conservation area and other considerations. So just an interesting decision for members to note, really, as it was a committee decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. That's very kind. Right. Item 7 on the agenda is urgent items. I've had no prior notification of any items of business which is considered to be urgent pursuant to section 100B 4B of the Local Government Act 1972. So there's nothing to deliberate, and that concludes the meeting.
Before you conclude, Chairman, I do have a request to speak from Councillor Kate Weller, if you'll indulge.
Okay, Councillor Weller, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's going back to Anne's report on the appeal. It just goes to show, really, doesn't it, that whatever we think, the inspector isn't going to take any notice, because yes, the 106 agreement had been agreed, and that's good. But local knowledge was that this is an impact on the conservation area, it is an impact on the environment, and we've signed up to a climate control agenda, which anyone can ride roughshod over. So it really rather makes a mockery of the whole thing, in my view, and I needed to say that.
I think your comments are very well taken, Councillor Weller. Okay.
No others, Chairman.
No others. Therefore, I conclude the meeting at 11:57. Thank you, members. I look forward to seeing you again. Very short notice one on the 1st of March, followed by the meeting on the 2nd, exactly the same as this month. And I look forward to seeing you all then. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.